From the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation, Outdoor Oklahoma.
Well, hello and welcome to Outdoor Oklahoma. I'm Todd Craighead. You know, for me, one of the more intriguing aspects of hunting is the tremendous variety within the sport. And personally, I think I like mostly the types that involve a retriever. Today, we'll take a look at a technique that involves retrievers and is also considered one of the oldest types of hunting in the world. But I guarantee it's not what you're thinking. We're not talking dogs today. We're talking falcons and the interesting and ancient art of falconry.
Falconry dates back at least 4,000 years. It was from the Far East basically, and it moved into Europe during the Crusades. It was a very popular sport and pastime during the Middle Ages in Europe. And there was a whole hierarchy in terms of what birds people could own or have, depending on what your rank and status in society. In the United States, falconry has become I'll say very popular with 4,000 falconers, but it's become quite a bit more popular over the last 20 or 30 years.
It's one of the most unique sports we have in Oklahoma and really any place in the world. It's a very ancient sport, and it's a sport where people use live trained raptors, falcons, hawks to actually hunt game.
You know, it was an interest, the thing that inspired me and that caused me to get into falconry is just an interest in wildlife. And it actually drove me to go out and become to get a degree in biology. And a lot of the falconers actually become biologists as a result of the falconry. It's an interest in watching that predator-prey relationship. It's more than just the hunting. It's because you get an opportunity to really see the hawks predator-prey thing going on a regular basis.
I was always interested in falconry when I was real young. Didn't know there was anything about it. You know, we didn't have the website, computers at that time, and it wasn't on the web, and it wasn't put out in the public as much as what it is now. So it was harder to get into it. And they had a big meet in November. It's called the North American Falconers Association back in the early 90s. And just happened to be in Woodward at that time where I grew up. And next thing I know, you know, somebody's telling me, oh, there's all these falcons out at the hotel, you ought to go out and see them. And so I went out there and I was like, oh my God, you know, they had all these birds out in the weathering yard staked out, and I got hooked up with some of the people and actually found out that there were state clubs and there were other crazy people like me that were doing this, and it just rent me from that time on. I sought it out and got into it and have had birds ever since.
I got into it, I went out with a friend who was a falconer, went on a hunting trip with him and kind of just fell in love with it from the first time I went. Another thing that really attracted me to the sport was I can hunt close to my home. I don't have to have a lease or drive way out of the city to go hunt. As long as I got the space to do it, since I'm not discharging a firearm or anything, I can hunt kind of wherever I want to as long as I get landowner permission. And it's something my kids can do with me because I don't need to sit in a deer blind and tell them to be quiet the whole time. I want them to walk around and make noise and scare up game for my bird to chase after, and my kids really enjoy it also. They have fun working with the birds with me.
From 19 years ago, most of the people were flying hawks and a lot less people are flying large falcons like this one I've got here. Because of captive breeding and because things like peregrine falcons have come off the endangered species list, and they're actually available to be trapped in the wild. Large falcons are much more popular than they used to be 20 or 30 years ago. And so what we're seeing now is a kind of a resurgence of people flying large long wings, everything from gyrfalcons and peregrines to hybrid falcons like this one and prairie falcons.
I became an apprentice just because I've been doing this for so long. It's a great way that I could go out, hang out with my dad. I got to go places, meet so many great people. I just like going out, you know, having some fun. This is a really great sport. Flying the birds is a really fun aspect of it. You know, you just have a great time doing things.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not something that you're going to be immediately gratified with. It's something that is going to take a long time. You're going to have to prepare for it, build facilities, get inspected, but it's ultimately rewarding whenever you see the birds actually up close and doing what they do.
It's a slow-growing sport in that it's a high time sport. It takes a lot of time to participate in falconry. It's not like some other field sports where you might be able to simply put the shotgun aside for the season. We usually work with the birds daily, year-round, at some level.
Y'all should have got here a little earlier and you could have went out and hunted with us. Yeah. Yeah, we're just getting back from the field, exercising the birds. Gonna put them back out so they can catch some sun and take a bath and get ready for tomorrow. So want to come on back and we'll show you our facilities.
It's an old sport. You do it like no other sport. You got birds and you're not using firearms. You hunt longer than you can with firearms. The action's cooler than, you know, sitting there in a deer stand or walking around through a field with a shotgun. You just have a great time, in my opinion, than doing that kind of thing.
Well, falconry is a very difficult sport. We only have about 100 falconers in Oklahoma, so you can tell from that how difficult it is to become one. It's a real challenge because there are hurdles you have to cross. You have to take an exam, you have to build facilities, as well as find a licensed falconer that's your sponsor. And it's only the really diehards that want to go through that procedure, but it's really tough because you're dealing with live birds and you're actually hunting with live birds, and some of them aren't that common in the wild, so it has to be fairly restrictive to protect the birds themselves.
Every day we will weigh the birds to kind of keep on top of them, see if they're ready to go out and hunt, or even just health-wise through the year, check them out. As you get into falconry, you think, oh, that looks like fun, and I could get a bird and go out and do this. Then they get into it and they realize how much of a commitment that it is. It's a daily thing. You've got to, you know, you're getting up and you go check the bird in the morning and make sure everything's good. If you come home from lunch, you're out checking on it. When you get home at night, you're out checking on it because you get hooked on it and they're part of your life. They're like a kid, and they're more time consuming than what a dog is, because you can't just take the dog or the bird to the vet and put it up for the weekend while you go out of town. You have to be another licensed falconer that can care for the bird to be able to handle it and watch it for somebody else. Plus you've got to have, you're only allotted so many birds for your license, and you know, if you're overloaded on birds, you can't watch one for somebody else because you don't have an open slot. So it is regulated. There are time restraints there that, you know, it's not just something that you can get into for a week or so and then not do it anymore. Especially if you've went and bought a bird and then you've got this bird, you just can't give it to anybody. So it's not for everybody, but if you're willing to make the sacrifice and you really enjoy it, then falconry is something that you'd probably want to get into. It's kind of it's always been my release. Go out in the field, fly the birds, hunt with them, and use your dog also. And if you've been working all day and you sneak out and go at the end of the day and go fly the birds, you get back home and you're all relaxed. It's like a nice little workout, and you've been out sucking some nice fresh air in. So it's a good release.
You know, basically we're a pretty low impact sport. In a lot of ways I like to think of falconry as being a kind of a green hunting sport. It's kind of the equivalent to hunting of what fly fishing is to fishing, in that it's about as difficult of a way as possible to try to catch something.
Want to do something green for the environment?
When you buy a hunting license, you support wildlife conservation.
Now we're going to travel to Balco, Oklahoma, and tag along with Dave Stevens as he uses his Golden Eagle to hunt jackrabbits in the Panhandle.
I'm Dave Stevens, this is Golden Eagle. We're flying jackrabbits in the Panhandle of Oklahoma out west. We're in Balco, Oklahoma, and we're going to try to jump jackrabbits with this Eagle today and have them fly them down. We're out hunting jacks in Oklahoma. Well, these are moose skin cups because they're real soft and supple. And this is a jess that feeds through a grommet in the cup. And that's how I control him, is through these jesses. And this right here is called a baldock. It's a Kazakhstan word because the Mongolians fly eagles a lot for an arm support. They're smaller statue people, and carrying their birds, which are much bigger than our Goldens, is quite a challenge. That's a 7-pound bird, and to fly with one all day, it's a lot of weight. Jeremy's putting a transmitter on right now. We'll put a transmitter on a tail mount. That way, if anything happens where the wind blows her downwind and we can't find him, then we're able to track him down with a receiver we've got in the truck. So that's kind of a quick rundown on the equipment we use. I don't use the baldock unless I'm sitting still like this, so I'm not wasting arm energy while we're just sitting here. When we're hunting, I just hold him free hand, and we go do what we're going to do. So. We're just turning and going back this way. Just waiting on our abbot. We're a little bit east in the Panhandle for jacks, but we're trying to create a few here this morning. And way too many people in the field, and they get very impatient waiting on jacks. He's spoiled because he lives in the Panhandle. And usually 10 feet into the field, we're kicking rabbits up. So this is a long time for him to wait to see a rabbit. Ho! Get him in, ho, ho! Get him in, ho! Where'd the rabbit go? Look 35. No, you ought to wear a button, man. I'm a lot older than you think, just to irritate people. That was a good flight. Everybody thought he was leaving, but he wasn't. I did. He was following it all the way down through the bottom, and it was a nice stoop too. He came close. It's early in the season. Those long flights are hard early in the season. Let me get up on the high side so he doesn't feel so bad. Oh, and ho, ho, ho! Get him, son, ho! Get him in, ho! Ho, ho! Get him, son, ho, ho! Get him in, ho! Ho! Really long flight into the wind. I hate you miss that. And he just kept pumping and pumping and pumping, and then the rabbit made a mistake and broke downwind into the canyon. And well, there you see the end of it. That's why we do it. These guys have incredible spirit. Eagles get criticized in the falconry community for being real difficult to do something called trade off, which is to give up their quarry to the falconer. And as you can see, he flew off and left it. So to say that that's overblown and an unfair criticism is an understatement. But of course, I'm kind of partial. I think they're great, but they're criticized for being aggressive on their kills. In other words, they'd be a threat to the falconer coming up on the kill. And Aiden has never threatened me in any way, and every time I offer him something, and this is a day-old turkey chick, whenever I offer him something as a reward for the kill, he just leaves it, jumps up to the fist, and lets me have the jack. And we'll catch 4 or 5 a day, usually in an hour. We usually hunt places with a lot more jacks than this. This is a little tough on you to photograph because it's a jack here or a jack there, and every one of these jacks are breaking down into this canyon, so everybody's missing the tail end of the flight, which is a shame. But this was a really cool flight because it's early in the season, he's not in the greatest condition, and the rabbit went right straight into the wind, which is what they normally do. And he just kept pumping and pumping and pumping and pursuing, and all of a sudden, the jack saw him out of the corner of his eye and turned, which is a major mistake because he turned downwind, and that was over. He came over the top of that ridge and went down here, and they slid for 10 feet. So he was really flying fast when he came downwind. But maybe we'll catch the next one. I just jumped one on the way down here, so we're starting to hit a few, which is nice to know. So let's go catch another one. And he's starting to adjust to the throng a little bit now.
Well, you know, I guess one of the first things, as the president of NAFA, I would recommend that they go to the NAFA website, and it's n-a-f-a.org. And when you go to that website, you can learn a fair amount about falconry right there. And the stuff we have on the NAFA website is put out there by, you know, hundreds of. It's a composition of hundreds or actually thousands of falconers' experiences over the last almost 50 years. Our organization's almost 50 years old now. So that's kind of the first place. The other thing is to check with your Fish and Game, your state Fish and Game. Each state has its own set of regulations, but we're regulated by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and by the state Fish and Game. You actually have to start out as an apprentice. You can't just take something like a hunter safety program and go out and start hunting. You actually have to find somebody to sponsor you and serve as an apprentice for at least 2 years before you can move up to the next level where you can be independent of your sponsor. You have to actually also take a written exam, pass it with at least an 80%. And then you also have to have facilities that meet federal requirements, and those have to be inspected by your Fish and Game official. All those things have to happen before you can get your license to take your first bird.
One thing everybody needs to be aware with falconry is it's not for those that just want to keep a pet falcon. It's actually a true hunting sport. And so to find out more about falconry, you can contact the Wildlife Division of our agency or come by next year's expo. There's always people there with birds and falconers that can explain their sport and can show you what their birds look like.
Well, thanks for watching today. I think it's amazing to realize that a collection of hunters right here in Oklahoma are connected in practice and in spirit with other hunters from around the world. We'll see you somewhere new next time on Outdoor Oklahoma.